Welcome to episode 6 of BraveTV season 1. We'd like to first thank Alkermes and the Inspiration Grant COVID-19 Relief Fund for sponsoring this season as we continue to explore how COVID-19 and current affairs are impacting our mental health. I'm Jennifer Marshall, Executive Director of This Is My Brave, and today's episode is really special. 2020 has had quite an impact on our organization. We're typically traveling the country, meeting our volunteer producers and storytellers at beautiful theaters as they take the stage to share their stories. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit, we took action to postpone our spring 2020 season of shows, St. Louis, Hampton Roads, Houston, and New Hampshire, to move them to the fall. Unfortunately, the pandemic had other plans, and we are now moving to a completely virtual platform to keep our producers, storytellers, audience members, and staff safe. Today is part 2 of the lost season, and we have producers Melissa Nolan from Houston, our New Hampshire co-producers Desmond and Rebecca Wolfe, and our This Is My Brave program manager and DC area high school edition producer Erin Gallagher with us to discuss the ups and downs of planning a show during the pandemic. So let's get started.
Let's start with some introductions. I'm Erin Gallagher, and I'm a program manager with This Is My Brave, and I've worked with all of you as you prepare for your shows. Thank you, producers, for being with us. And so let's go around and just say hello to everybody who's with us today. Rebecca, why don't we start with you?
Awesome. Thanks for having us today. My name is Rebecca Wolfe, and I'm one of the co-producers for This Is My Brave New Hampshire. We were fortunate enough to put on this show last year as part of an event with the place I work for, Riverbend Community Mental Health. We're based in Concord, New Hampshire, and I'm the communications coordinator. So this falls under one of the events that we put on as part of Mental Health Awareness Month, and we're super excited to be doing it again.
Great, thanks. How about you, Ellen?
Yeah, hi, thanks for having us. I work with Rebecca on the show. My name is Desmond. I serve as the director of This Is My Brave New Hampshire. And again, it's my second year with This Is My Brave.
Welcome. And Melissa.
Hi guys. This is also my second year with This Is My Brave. We were able to bring the show to Houston last year, and I was a co-producer as well as able to tell my story on stage, which was amazing. And then of course we wanted to bring it back this year. So I was able to get that set up, and we're, rocking and rolling here.
Thanks, Melissa. We're so glad you're with us, all of you, for taking the time out. Thanks for taking the time and to speak with us about what it's been like to produce a show during the pandemic. So just to set the stage for everybody, each of these shows is very unique. The high school edition show was originally planned for the fall, so they're gearing up. They've just had the shift from being in a live theater to being virtual. Houston, due to everything going on with the pandemic and across many of our cities in our country, we wanted to ensure the safety of everyone and hold the show virtually. But New Hampshire is a unique situation. It's definitely a low area of risk, and we're taking all the precautions. So just wanted to set that background for everybody. But so for you guys producing the show, what has it been like during this very, very unique year? Melissa, do you want to start and let us know?
Sure. After going through everything last year, you kind of have these expectations of what it's going to be like, and you feel like you're prepared. This year, it's been great being a producer. I mean, it's so encouraging to hear all the stories and to know what's going on, and to meet the new castmates, but it's been really hard as well, just digesting all the changes and the pivots, and knowing you guys are doing everything you can to help us still get those stories out there.
What about for you, Rebecca, and in New Hampshire?
I absolutely loved the experience last year. And though it feels like a lot happens right close to the show, once the show's done with, there's that high of, wow, look at what we just did. And I learned so much from the show last year. And then this year going into it, I was so excited. Admittedly, I was starting to feel a little bit overwhelmed. I knew that This Is My Brave was scheduled to debut again in May. And when COVID started creeping in around March, I had a few feelings of like, oh, this is kind of nice. and that we can, we have a little bit more time to prepare. Our cast is going to be so prepared. We can still do the show. I had that naive thought that COVID was going to come and go and we could put on the show as usual in the summer. And then for it to just continuously change, it has been definitely difficult to adapt to the new changes, but I'm really proud of how everyone in our producer team and the cast has been able to just really adjust to the whole situation.
One of the major benefits of actually having to be virtual for rehearsals is that we've had almost twice as many rehearsals than we would have had normally. And so that's afforded us this opportunity to really get to know the cast members a lot better. And they've been able to get to know each other a lot better as well. We have a shared drive with all their pieces, and they're commenting on each other's pieces in between our rehearsals. And so it's really nice to see that that camaraderie that, if we had only had the 4 rehearsals that we had scheduled, we probably wouldn't have, had the same kind of bond, I think, exists between folks. So it's actually been a benefit. People can, with the exception of those who struggle with technology a little bit, people can more accessibly, get on to the laptop and stream Zoom for our rehearsals versus, driving up to Concord, because we've got cast members from all over. So it just allows us to have that common space a little bit more frequently, which has been really lovely.
Awesome. And Erin, what about for you, for gathering those high schoolers on virtual rehearsals?
Yeah, so I forgot to mention at the beginning that I also am functioning as a producer of a show, co-producing with Jen on the high school edition here in the DC area. And so, of course, I've worked on the back end of shows, and this is the first time that I would be acting as a producer of a show. So while I was looking forward to having that same experience that you all had last year, it's been, a little upended this year with the pandemic. So, working with teens is a little different because they, despite the fact that we're all supposed to be at home, somehow they still end up being really busy. And so getting them together, it's been hard. We never even got to, we started our casting a little later in the season. And so we never even got to have one first get together, that cast party that I think most of you did. So we've never met in person. We've always been on Zoom together. And so I think we're doing a great job. Getting to know each other. I try to work in some icebreakers so we can get to know each other on a very personal level, in addition to the stories that we're going to share. So it's been fun. I enjoy working with them, but we'll do the best we can. Now that the show is going to be virtual, even so, we'll never have that moment like you all will have in New Hampshire of even getting into the same space and telling the story, at least from the same microphone. I feel bad that they're not going to have that experience, that cast camaraderie that you all know is so powerful. So I'm disappointed that we won't get that, but their stories are great and we really want to have them out there. So we'll do it any way we can.
And we do hope that one day, once we're able to get back into a theater safely, we will bring these young people from the high school edition from Houston. They will get that moment on stage, because that's something that This Is My Brave, that's what we were built on. And we want everyone to be able to have that opportunity to have the experience. It's just the world had different plans this year, unfortunately, but I'm really proud of how everyone's adapting too. Let's go back to auditions just for a second and kind of tell everyone what that was like to sit in that seat and take in those stories. Melissa, what was it like for you in Houston?
You audition day, comparing it to the previous year, is kind of, you have the butterflies, you're like, I don't know who's going to come out and what stories are we going to see. You have your tissues ready because they're probably going to make you cry and move you. This year, I had such high expectations after last year's storytellers, and the people that came out were just amazing. Their stories moved me. Joanne is my co-producer here, and we were able to really choose a cast that was diverse and varied, and they just fit together well, and represent a variety of different people and illnesses, and auditions were really good this year. We had more turnout than last year, which means we're growing in Houston, which is the best thing that could happen.
It's amazing how that happens, right? You put that call out for storytellers, you never know who you're going to meet, and you trust in the process, and these incredible people show up, and you're able to magically piece together a show that educates and inspires and uplifts and moves. So never ceases to amaze me how that happens. But what about in New Hampshire? What did it feel like for you guys?
I love the audition process. It's talk about the butterflies. I would echo everything that Melissa says. I mean, not only are these people coming in and sharing probably some of their most vulnerable moments in their life, and for many of them it's the first time, which is something that I tend to lose sight of and have to remind myself what this experience is for these people. But Ellen and I and the other people who were on our panel of people who were at the auditions often make a point to let the people auditioning know that we're nervous too. We're not doing anything except watching you share your story, but we still feel that energy. And I think once we kind of clear that into the room, that helps everyone get a little more comfortable and authentic. But every time we leave the auditions, we're just wowed.
What about for you, Ellen? I was going to say, you've been in theater for a long time, but maybe this has been your first time kind of producing this mental health type storytelling event.
For sure. So, I mean, the difference between auditioning for, a musical or a straight play is that you're taking on a character, right? You're speaking from another point of view that's not your own. And so to watch people open up with their own stories, their own words, the energy, as Rebecca was saying, is so different than putting on the mask that you do when you are an actor. So we approach it knowing that vulnerability exists, and really make a point to just praise people for their willingness to be so open with us, people that they've never met before. 4 of us sitting in a line behind a table taking notes. That's intimidating for anyone. So trying to make them feel really comfortable from the get-go. Rebecca would go out into the waiting room and welcome them and describe a little bit about the show, and just have some casual conversation before we launched into their stories, just to make them feel a little bit more at ease. And even doing little things like, you can sit, you can stand, you can be wherever you do whatever you want to make yourself feel comfortable, and ensuring that people feel like they're occupying the space in a way that feels true to their story and their comfort level. One of the really cool things about our cast this year is that it actually has evolved. So we've had a core group of cast members from the beginning, but when we learned that we were going to have to, push it and really kind of rethink it, we were able to put another call out to grow our cast. And so we've had some folks join our cast, and now it's a little bit bigger. And we, to Melissa's point, we now have more diverse stories, just a great representation. Our youngest cast member is 13, and she's performing a dance piece. And our oldest cast member, I believe he's 70. So like, what a cool range. We've got folks who have experienced mental illness themselves. We have an individual who talks about, his wife struggle with mental illness. She actually was a cast member of ours last year, and he wanted to tell his side of the story in watching his wife kind of go through what she's gone through. And so that's just a wonderful thing that we've been able to adapt and pivot a little bit with COVID, and that allowed us to, extending the time allowed us to add more people to our New Hampshire Brave family. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, silver lining in the midst of all the pain that people have been going through. So that's really great. And Erin, for high school, I believe we launched auditions, and we were always virtual with auditions. So that was something unique. Can you share with us a little bit about the diversity among the high school cast?
Sure. I mean, we always did it virtually, and which I think is almost maybe even makes them feel a little bit more vulnerable. I mean, if you're not used to talking about your story, to sit in your bedroom and know that, I don't know, your mom could be, right next door cleaning the room, and listening to you, I feel like that's a level of vulnerability beyond, you don't go out into the world and go stand in a room somewhere and walk out and leave that behind. You're doing it right there in your home. So, but these kids have been really still just willing to put themselves out there. So we had one principal at a high school that was willing to share our call for students. So we got several students from one high school, but we've got a variety of teens. One, the oldest of which is actually has graduated and it will be going to college locally in the fall, but before he goes off for that adventure, he's going to do this one last thing with us. He's a really ambitious young man and takes up a lot of leadership on a lot of issues. So his counselor heard about what we were doing and thought of him immediately, and he was right on board and ready to join us. So he's our oldest and most veteran type sharer. And then we've got, I think the youngest students we have are sophomores. And we have musicians, and we have poets, and we have essayists, and they've all faced a variety of different conditions, but they're all ready to share. And they brought really strong pieces too, which is very promising. I just, high school, I thought we'd have a lot of work to do to get these up and ready. And in fact, they came really with very strong pieces, very impressive young group. So
that's awesome. I can't wait to get all of these stories out and really allow the whole world to be able to tune in. So one question I have for you guys, which we didn't have on our list, but I'm going to throw it out there. Why was it important for you guys to stick with this project despite the changes and despite the struggles of this year? Why did you want to do this, Melissa?
Ooh. Ever since I discovered This Is My Brave, through a childhood friend that was able to tell her story in the Baltimore show in 2018, I think. But I watched her on stage tell this story, and it moved me so much, all the feels. And it made me want to reach out and see how I could help to get these stories out there. And I had a story to tell, and we all have stories to tell, and it just seemed like such a great platform to be able to share these stories so that we can, see we're not so disconnected. We have more in common than we think. And it's just such a passion for me. It's made me stronger as a human, as an individual. I'm able to talk about the mental illness that I deal with openly with friends and family, even strangers. I'll talk your ear off. But I love advocating to end the stigma surrounding mental illness. And I think that this platform is a great place to do that.
Awesome.
What about you? Yeah, I think we're more than ever, we need this platform right now because we are so physically disconnected, or everything's remote. And so if you're, sitting behind a screen or 6 feet away from somebody, you don't feel the intimacy that comes with, conversation when you're standing right next to someone. And so sometimes I think, the content of your conversations stays pretty surface. I know, at least I can speak for myself, it's a lot of, just checking in, like, how is everybody? We're all dealing with this. It just, it becomes this rote kind of script of, that kind of like check-in. But getting to the heart of how we are all doing mentally is a little bit more intimidating, I think, for some people. And so This Is My Brave allows people to literally take the mic, or virtually take the mic, and have that platform to open up in a time where we need to be talking about this nationally, internationally. And so it actually is really good timing, I think, to continue with the show. I think giving it up would have been, a huge mistake, because then it feels like, we're somehow minimizing the need, when it actually is the opposite. The need for storytelling about mental health and our own experiences with that is actually increasing. We know that this is, producing a lot of anxiety in folks, and that we all need that sense of connection and belonging, and that's been taxing for people. So just maintaining that like lifeline for folks, and that their ability, to share their stories. A lot of the stories and the conversations that we've had during rehearsals have focused around, how are you dealing amidst the pandemic? And a few of them have kind of reflected on that and woven little pieces of that, into their stories, like the newer versions of their stories, because it's, our stories are ongoing. So a few
that
of them.
was actually going to be my next question.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you would be brave enough to share on this special episode, but how has your mental health been affected personally, like during this time? I know for myself, I experienced a manic episode in March when the pandemic first erupted. I was, very fortunate to be able to connect with my psychiatrist through telehealth and get treatment. But we live with these conditions. I mean, what was it like for you, Rebecca? Would you be open enough to share about?
Absolutely. Going through This Is My Brave last year, one of the beautiful things about This Is My Brave for me is how many of the stories are relatable to so many people. And I know that's often the goal. I tell everyone the goal is for someone in the audience, if they themselves are struggling, to be able to hear other people share something that sounds similar to their own experience and think, oh, maybe I'm not alone in this thought process that I'm having. And that's actually something that happened for me. After the show, I heard a lot of the stories and I was like, this sounds a lot like my experience. I'm still very early in my own mental health journey, but right around the time that the pandemic hit, I had an appointment with my PCP, and I told her that I had been really struggling lately. And she referred me to a psychiatrist, and I spoke with that psychiatrist, and it was her thought that I had bipolar 2. And so that was a totally new discovery for me. And while many of the stories of people with bipolar, I thought, I kind of had an idea, but being sheltered at home with my own thoughts more than ever, just not having work to distract me, or all the other usual things that I would do to keep myself busy and just chugging along. Once all of that fell off, I was able to really kind of dig deeper into my own mind, and even just having a psychiatrist be able to validate that what I was feeling was not maybe everyone's experience, and that I should, be seeking help for that, was just really powerful for me. So that's been my experience.
And you're not the only one. I've heard from other storytellers and producers who have been in our organization who have had that similar experience, that hearing all those stories, taking them in, they realize, wait, that sounds kind of like what I've gone through. And then they will kind of check in with the doctor. And that's the whole goal of this. It it makes me happy that you were able to come to that realization and that you reached out for help. So thank you for sharing, Rebecca.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else want to share?
I mean, I'm happy to. I think it's been like a roller coaster journey for me. When COVID first started, it was like, go, go, go. And then I was furloughed and it was like, stop. And then I just recently started a new job about a month and a half ago, and it's full steam ahead again. And despite everything going on, even staying busy, you know, starting projects around the house, doing puzzles, gardening, trying to keep my mind active, I've had many moments of being very low. And I think that obviously my anxiety, I have major depressive disorder, and it's kicked in, and it's like on top of life and everything else we're trying to digest, your head is telling you things that aren't true, you know, and kind of trying to sabotage you. And I feel like everything I've done with This Is My Brave that's made me stronger has made me more of an advocate for myself. So when my mental health has been bad, or not bad, but, you know, lower than typical, I am able to reach out to my husband or my support group, even some of our cast members. We have little, you know, help each other out Zoom calls or, you know, check-ins, things like that. And even reaching out to my doctor, we just did a slight medication change, and typically I would have waited 6 months or a year and just cried, you know, and now I know if something's wrong, 3 or 4 weeks, call the doctor and, you know, see if there might be something that they can do to help you, because that's not typical. And so I'm feeling good today. Every time I get to work on this project, it makes me more inspired. It's a big passion project. So This Is My Brave has definitely helped me when I'm feeling low.
I'm so glad to hear that, Melissa. I'm so glad to hear that you found strength in, you know, the experience of being a part of the organization. Huge part, all of you. I mean, I'm so grateful to all that you've put into making your shows successful and bringing these stories out and sticking with everything despite a global pandemic. So, well, I would love to go around to wrap up with asking you guys if there's one piece of advice you could offer that's maybe something that's helped you in your mental health through the pandemic, or just any other piece of advice you'd like to share. Who wants to start?
I'm happy to start. I am a huge proponent of talk therapy. So I would say get yourself a therapist regardless. It's great to form a relationship when you're feeling good. And so if you're feeling good right now, but you know, you want to have somebody to talk to, telehealth is a wonderful, wonderful thing right now.
I have to plug our BetterHelp offer, because we don't get anything from this. It's not sponsored, but I personally use BetterHelp. I love them. I know a lot of people that do, Melissa also. And you can go to betterhelp.com/thisismybrave and get a month of free therapy to try it. Like Ellen said, it's, you know, no better time to start than the present.
Exactly. Yeah. So I've found that to be a wonderful, you know, just knowing that I have that every other week and I need it. It keeps me grounded. And so that's been really helpful for me. And I would highly encourage, you know, find somebody who is qualified and can just be a listening ear for you when you're feeling good and when you're not feeling so good.
Yeah.
I have found yoga to be my saving grace in this life. When I started to dig into my mental health journey a few years ago, I found yoga to be really, really beneficial for my mental health. And this is also not a plug for me, but someone whom I use regularly, almost every day on the internet, is Yoga with Adrienne. She has free YouTube. She's based in Austin, Texas. She puts out free YouTube videos, and she is more about finding what feels good in your body than nailing that yoga pose or having that perfect yoga body. And she does a really good job of integrating the mind into the practice as well. So if you're looking for a free at-home half-hour activity to boost you in any way, she has yoga for any type of way you're feeling, and I love her. But also my cat has been my saving grace, I think, in animals in general. Just finding those little pockets of joy where you can.
Definitely, that's awesome. Melissa and Erin?
Yeah. Well, I would just say, I mean, echoing Ellen and Rebecca, I've been in therapy once a week since COVID started, and that's important to me. I've been doing yoga, gardening, just trying to figure out where I can find a happy place without having to leave my house, really. So happy places at home. And I mean, I would say the biggest thing is that we need to keep sharing stories, because it makes such a difference. And if I've learned anything, it's been to be more vulnerable and to reach out to people and allow them the chance to be there. Maybe you have to ask first if they can, hold some space for you because you're having a tough day. But if they can, that just means so much more and builds that relationship so much stronger. So don't be afraid to reach out to your friends and family and let them know, I'm having a rough time. I need you to check on me. I need some support.
That's a really good piece of advice, Melissa. I agree. We have to be comfortable being brave and reaching out when we need it, and checking on those friends who we think about often. When you're thinking about them, pick up your phone and text them and make that call. Erin, do you want to have our closing piece of advice?
Ooh.
Yes.
I hope it's good enough to be a closer, but I have to say, I like life hacks. I like those little nuggets that like change things up for you. So recently, I heard this life hack. When people say, to be well, you should make sure that you're staying fit and eating well and da 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 da. And I feel like those are all good things, but I think I heard something more specific recently that I really liked. Because we're just living in this endless, there's things that we can choose to do that are just, or not choose. Like we're living in a pandemic and we don't know what that looks like. We can't define what the end is. We don't know the shape it's going to take tomorrow. We have unrest in our country that we don't know where that's going to go. I mean, there's so much that's unknown and we can't predict it. So I heard somebody the other day that said, in the midst of all of this that's unclear and never ending almost, that we should choose activities that have very clear starts and finishes. So even like sometimes we turn to social media, right? And you can scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll, and you never get to the end of it. And you might spend an hour and be like, I mean, you could spend 3 hours really, and it never really changes, and you don't get any sense of accomplishment. You may have had moments of joy in there or frustration, but so choosing something that has a clear start and a finish. So we have a friend who loves to cook, and he sets out to make manicotti, and he has to get all the ingredients. He has to put it together. Then they have this great moment of enjoying it together as a family. When you go for a walk, there's a start, there's an end to it. You do a crossword puzzle. Hopefully you can get to the end of that. Like having that sense of accomplishment in those activities that are supposed to be, giving you some mental health component. I think that was the life hack. I was like, yes, I can do 3 or 4 things a day that have a clear start and finish. Yeah. And that, I think, gives me a sense of accomplishment and a little boost of joy or energy. Those little things you need to take you further and keep you up and hopeful and strong for the next whatever is coming up.
I love that, Erin. That's such a great life hack. Thank you for sharing. Find those activities that have the start and finish. I think a lot of us are going to be finding a recipe for tonight that will Off the table.
Share. We need some new stuff around here. We're doing the same old really for a while.
Exactly, but that's a good one. Thanks for sharing. Thank you all. Thank you to Melissa, to Rebecca, to Ellen, to Erin. Thank you guys so much for joining us on Brave TV. I can't say enough how grateful I am for all the time, energy, passion, heart that you all have poured into your shows and building the little families in your communities that are being open about their mental health. We couldn't do it without you. So this has definitely been a memorable year, and we will get these stories in October out to the world. So check our website, our events page for details on tuning in, and stay tuned for more details on the next episode of Brave TV. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.